Hey guys, Harv here, and welcome back to the Kerbal space program. In this episode we have a kind of a one-off mission. A mission not necessarily to another planet or to another celestial body at all. In today's episode I want to try and design a new launch stage. Or I did want to try and design a new launch stage. Actually now I just want to improve my current launch stage, because after attempting to do a previous recording of this, which wasn't really going to be uploaded anyway, it was more of an attempt to try and come up with a design, I found out that mine's actually pretty good. My launch stage is actually fairly good, to be honest, and having learned that and deciding that instead of starting from scratch, it's probably a better idea to work on what we've already got. So I'm going to make myself a universe with the standard Kerbal flag for some reason. Let me change that. Doesn't really matter. You know what, I'm going to use maths. Lol, it's a flag, okay? And yes, so basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run through how to build my launch stage, what I've made now, and this launch stage can deliver a 90-ton payload to orbit, which is enough to do a lot of things. That is more than 5 tanks of fuel, and that's 5 of the big tanks. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a 90-ton payload into orbit, and it's going to be a really simple, just an engine with a load of fuel, something like that, and some advanced SES. So I'm going to use the computer pod. I'm going to put on this with, I'm going to do 4 tanks of fuel to make some room for an engine. Hang on, there we go, 4 in total. Put that up there. And I'll use a skipper engine. How much do they weigh? 4. Total mass of 4. Okay. How much does this weigh? This is just determining a payload to use. Could just put 5 tanks of fuel up there, but I'd like it to be something useful. Not that I'll actually use it for anything, just non-ordinary. That is 81 tons. That may be enough just to prove the concept. We'll add some fuel lines, and yeah, we'll say that's okay. Doesn't need to be anything massive, and in fact, with the extra fuel we have left over, we can probably use it for something. We could probably try and send it to the moon, try and send it to Mmmm. Hey, who knows? This isn't necessarily a tutorial. This is just me showing you how I have, or what the launch stage we're going to use is. And I've decided, yes, we will be doing standardization, so I'll actually save this in my stock ships folder, and so I can reuse the launch stage over and over again, because I don't mind overbuilding unless there is a specific reason not to. So let's get started on the actual launch stage, and it's going to be basically a bigger variant of what you've already seen before. So if you watch my videos regularly, you know exactly what is coming. For those of you who have maybe just stumbled across this video, then welcome. I'm building a launch stage, 4 tanks high. That is 2 normal tanks and 1 jumbo tank. For reasons being that 3 tanks isn't really enough, or it is enough, but 4 tanks is definitely capable. And if we have not an orange one at the bottom directly on top of the engine, we won't get as much overheating. Some people seem to still not know that, so it's good, useful information to go over. So this is our main section. We're going to have 6 Asparagus stage stacks. I said that, oh, I don't want to use Asparagus staging, it gets boring, repetitive, and then I actually tried to make a launch stage that didn't use it, and I've come to rely on the increased efficiency. It really does help, and it helps moderate speed, which is fairly important because you drop the extra thrust as you go along. What I'm doing now, though, not minding that, is building some supports, because fuel tanks have a habit of wobbling in a rather distressing manner sometimes. So I'm just going to connect these fuel tanks together, like so. 3 times symmetry going like that, so that I can start building. And I'm building in pairs because it makes staging easier, and it also makes making them slightly different to one another easier. So here is the first pair I'm going to build, and it is exactly the same as the center stack, with 4 tanks in total, or four lots of tanks, worth of 4 tanks, and it's going to be pushed up just slightly higher than that one. So we can have an engine underneath, there we go. And now we want our jumbo tank, like so. And we want another Rockamax tank right here. And this is basically going to be the basis. There's Steam. If you checked your Steam, type in the comments now. I should really put that on busy, shouldn't I? You know what? I don't mind. You lot will, though. It's fine. So, yes, we've got the stack, and because we're going to copy this stack here, I'm going to sort out all struts we may have on every single one. So that is, in fact, not symmetrical. You can tell because that's on the wrong side. So we want to put this in the center, about there. There we go. And we'll feed it straight through so that it connects to the center stage or center stack. And then we shall take a strut. And we'll do it on each tank, roughly in the middle. Where is the middle? About here-ish. Get it there. And that's not central. Damn it. I keep on overcompensating. It needs to be there. That is central. Of course, this is all nitpicking. You don't actually have to be this perfect. In fact, if we just copy that and paste up here, no, it doesn't work. Then you know, you don't have to be perfectly nitpicky. I'm just trying to make, because this is what I'm building right now is going to be my actual launch stage that I reuse over and over again. So I want to make it as good as I can. Now, let me. What are we doing here? Well, we'll put some struts on in the actual version, on each unique use of it. So we have those three connected, those three struts connecting us to the middle. We'll have another one on top, but because our payload will differ, we don't want to make that right now. And what we're going to do is simply copy this. We're going to put, that one's actually not in the right place. This one is, that I'm placing right now. We want to move this one in and put it about here. There we go. And then we'll take these and we'll move it in and we'll put it again about here, trying to get it level. There we go. So they are all perfect copies except for this side one here, which is not going to be a stack with an engine. It's simply going to be a stack of drop tanks, because we don't need the extra thrust, and the fewer amount of engines we have, the higher efficiency we get. So that is fine. Now we're going to link these stacks together. This is turning into a tutorial, isn't it? Well, it might as well be. Link these stacks together like this, and we are going to take these and link them together, and third and final time, take and link. And now it is time to do the actual fuel lines. After we do these struts at the top, of course. Take and link, easier because we have more visibility. Take and link, and take and link. So long as they're actually linked, it really doesn't matter how perfectly symmetrical they are. So fuel lines, the drop tanks are going first. Remember that I'm working in pairs. My symmetry is on ×2, so everything I do on this one tank here gets reflected onto this tank over here, which is incredibly useful, and it's why I don't use 6x symmetry from the start. Or it is one of the reasons why. So fuel goes from here into here. Fuel goes from here into here. And then the last pair to be dropped, the fuel goes from there into the center stack. And because we have two lots of struts in essence there, I'm also going to put an extra strut to make the weight evenly distributed there. Even though it actually is, because as I've said, everything is reflected in ×2 symmetry, I like to do it for one reason or another. I'm going to add some launch lamps. Generally don't need all that many. 4 will do. I'm going to move the entire ship down a little, and that is the actual part count of our launch stage, with an 80-ton payload on top. So I'm going to now rearrange this staging. In fact, what I think I'll do, we'll test it out with a payload after I finish building. I'm going to take it off, I'm going to delete all that, and we're going to have a placeholder command module. Move all that, just to put this up at the right height. And connect it back underneath. There we go. And you know what, we might as well put a big nose cone on top. Not using nose cones in this design, not using solid rocket fuel either, because this is really quite... I don't know what the word for it is. It's intended to be perfect for almost any purpose, and when you're using nose cones you don't actually help at all, you just add style, which was something I said in the previous video I did want to aim for, but despite the fact that style is good and everything, going for the utmost efficiency as possible right now is really the way to play the game. And it still doesn't look bad. Adding the orange tanks in gives it a splash of colour, which is something that we rarely see in rockets. I wish we could repaint the fuel tanks in game. But anyway, back to the staging. We've sorted that out, and now we need to drop the pairs in order. So we have our struts and our engines all firing at the same time. Struts, that being the launch lamps disengaging. The first pair to go, if we hover over this drop tank's decoupler, there's the drop tank, is the bottom one here. So we'll drag that into the first stage. Next stage, we want our second one across, which is this pair, leaving the final pair of decouplers as the final one. And in the actual thing, if we just take this off, move this up, and give ourselves a decoupler, we'll be using a decoupler, so we might as well keep that on there. And move everything back down. If you want to move your entire ship at once, just hold shift, click on any part, and you can move it around. If you don't hold shift, then you'll end up taking parts off, unless you are clicking on the parent part, in which case you just move everything around anyway, because everything is attached to that parent part. So there we go, that's our staging setup. Nearly. We've added a decoupler that we'll put right on top. So there we go, the staging is set up now. With a basically fully built launch stage, the only final thing left to do after 12 minutes or so of building is to add our action group, because I like to turn off the gimbal in order to reduce the amount of swaying, and depending on the size of the payload, because you may actually need more gimbal than we usually have in order to stop it from going in the wrong area if you have a massive payload. It's generally safe to turn off these two here. So the first pair we have is gimbaling, but then once we've dropped the first pair of drop tanks and we've dropped this stack of engines, we're left with only one gimbal link, which is generally sufficient right from the start anyway. So there we go, they're both selected. Toggle gimbal is going to be on custom 1, and that will turn them both off if we press that before we launch. Save that, and we have a fully functioning launch stage. So I'm going to save this for movement later into the stock folder. I'm going to save it as, oh, I don't know, how about a Spacier launch stage, which is supposed to be a pun because NASA have released designs for their, or not exactly designs, but their intention to build a space launch stage, their new heavy transporter up to orbit and beyond. Save that. And we should have just built a launch stage capable of lifting 90 tons into orbit. I don't think it can do 100, but it can definitely do 90. So what I'm going to do now that I've saved that, is I'm going to put a 90-ton payload and build this again. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to add a capsulon. We'll use a 3-man. And actually move this out of the way so that I can move this up. There we go. Put this back. 90 tons. If that weighs 4, then how are we going to get up to 90? Well, if we say these weigh 20, because they weigh 18, so we'll round up. If we were to use 4 of them, we'd get 80. So we'll put that 3 on, like we said earlier. 3 on there. We want advanced SAS, more weight, reaching us nearer to our goal. We'll put a decoupler on there and a parachute. Standard building. And this is really just proof of concept, just doing it for the hell of it. And if we move everything up, we'll put a skipper engine. Now, I don't know exactly, that's probably gone over the limits, but we'll see. skipper engine on there. We'll put our external fuel duct right here. There we go. And there we have a working thing. So if we move everything down, right there, we shall take struts from the top, like I was saying earlier. There we go, snap to 2x symmetry, and we want to connect this to the payload. So there's plenty of surface area on the top of these tanks, instead of having those cones to actually keep the payload fastened. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. There we go. Get that out the way, and we have fully connected our work. And that is the Spacier launch stage. Won't save this. Better just call it something else so I don't overwrite. Make sure the staging is correct. It's not. We want to add stage here, up here. This is the stage up there. That is the one right there. Disconnecting the engine. And we can just put that there. There we go. Okay. Okay, we'll see how much this weighs in total, and also just the payload by itself. We'll load this onto the pad. Now, I've had times where this will just destroy itself for no apparent reason. What usually happens is that one of these fuel tanks on the drop pair decides to disconnect upon launch. Hey, we've got the original 3. Of course we have, we started a new save. And, well, how much do we weigh in total? So yes, if it does break, we can just restart the flight, and that generally works. 102 parts in the entire thing, weighing 616 tons. Why is this so good? Because we dump the majority of that mass, giving us more delta V. And if we choose to disconnect this module here, there we go, and we go in, we've got an 81 ton payload. So not quite the 90 tons that I said this thing can lift. So we should have, if we can lift 90 tons with this launch stage, then we should have plenty of delta V left over to deorbit the remaining stack. That's one thing I'd like to do actually. Make sure there's a probe on there. I'm going to do that right now, because having a probe and some sort of energy transfer or generation means that we can deorbit it if it's left in orbit. It's just a little nice thing to have, and we can actually, yeah, we'll put it underneath. So there we go. We'll use the big 3-meter version, and I'm not actually. Do we need energy? And do we need energy generation? No, we won't. It's got a massive battery on itself. It can actually hold quite a lot of power, and because we're using the command pod, we shouldn't be draining any energy in this mission. So we'll keep it like that. That will be fine. Okay. Launch this. I'll add a probe in the actual Spacier launch stage later on perhaps. But there we go. So we are ready for launch, and hopefully we should be able to get this fairly considerable weight straight into orbit and beyond. So we are launching, throttling up, and we shall double tap 1 to disengage that gimbaling I was talking about. And we're go for launch in 3, 2, 1, liftoff. Fairly slow start off because we are only using 5 main cells rather than the 7 that I end up usually using in these videos. But it does speed up fairly quickly, and this fuel drains remarkably fast. We've got a current fuel drain of about 240 litres every second. But that goes down as we rise and our efficiency increases. But it doesn't have time to go down enough to make this not drain quite so fast. So the big jumbo tack here has nearly run out, and we're now on the final bit. Has anything broken? No, that's good. Proving that it works. Thank you for going right on camera. And then this final drop pair has emptied. We can drop, and we end up with this. We can throttle back a little bit to prevent overheating. And to make sure we don't go too fast, there's no need to go too fast, because if we do, then we actually end up being less efficient, because drag increases the faster you're moving through the fluid, that being the air. And yes, we'll carry on rising. So by double tapping 1, I turned off the gimbaling of this pair so that there wasn't too much shaking. The next pair to drop is this stack here, which has ran out, or nearly ran out, in the Jumbo 64 fuel tank. There we go. And now the final bit. And we'll drop that in but a moment. Rise up, hoping to start our gravity turn at 10 kilometers, and we drop, and now we begin to turn over. Now running on only one Gemauling engine. There we go. So of course the only thing well, not the only thing, but one of the major things determining how well this mission goes now is how well I do my gravity turn. And I'm hoping to do it satisfactorily, if that is the correct pronunciation of the word I'm aiming for. Okay, so we're rising. We have got 17 kilometers, and now things have broken. And we'll take a look. What went wrong? Structural failure on linkage between Rockomax fuel tank and Rockomax Jumbo fuel tank. And between the Pro body and the decoupler. All within the space of a second. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the Spacier launch stage. Apparently prone to braking. What we can actually do is start up this engine. And brake. We'll try that again. It always seems to brake for no apparent reason, which is really annoying when I know I've built it well enough to work. But I guess the factor against me, mainly that it didn't work. So this is going to be the final flight. We're going to try this one more time, hoping to get our payload into orbit. And yeah, so I was repeatedly saying that I wanted to make a new launch stage because just, you know, there's too much input. Having to do too much input, looking for when these tanks are going to run out, and staging every time a tank runs out. But I don't think that's too much of a problem. And seeing as how well it actually can work, if I manage to get that maybe recorded now, if the Kerbal space program gods shine upon me, I'll be able to show it to you. But yeah, I should build on what works. That's basically the motto here. Drop that first pair of tanks. Still accelerating. And maybe this will work this time. So I can actually throttle back a bit now. There we go. I noticed we were travelling fairly fast when we got to our 10 kilometer mark last time, because I throttled down a bit later. There we go. Overheating has fully stopped, and we're just trying to get this thing into orbit. So this is what we're going to be using then. That is basically the aim of this video. I've built a space launch stage, or a Spacier launch stage, that is capable of lifting a considerable amount into orbit. What I might do is build a Giganto version, because that's not a word, a gigantic version, and we should be able to maybe do a little bit better with that if we want to lift anything bigger. My aim was to try and build something that could lift 100 tons, and I just missed that. This thing can lift 90. But we'll see. We'll see whether I can make a bigger version to lift over 100 tons. Shouldn't be too hard. I mean, even just adding on a few boosters, perhaps, could do the job. But yes, we shall be seeing in upcoming videos. So, 15 kilometers up. We've turned over fairly steeply, not too much of a problem. Nothing has broken yet. That's always a good thing. And we're getting to the end after 25 minutes, unless I do some editing. After 25 minutes, we're getting to that point where it's time to start ending off the video. 20 kilometers up. We did turn fairly steeply, but that's not too much of a problem. How much do we weigh now? Ooh, 240 tons. That's a lot less than it was. That's what you get for dropping so much weight. We're speeding past 500 meters per second, 27 kilometers up, coming up to that 30 kilometers where I like to be at 45 degrees over. I found that's a good target to usually set for. There we go. 1 point prograde. Technically, its most most advised to point directly prograde to keep your efficiency as high as possible, but that's not always feasible when you're trying to get out of an atmosphere. But we'll try it now, seeing as we're going fairly fast. There we go. Pointing just about prograde, and that stage runs out. And we detach, still accelerating. 40 kilometers up. And let's have a look at where our Asparagus is. 61 kilometers. So the higher orbit we try and put ourselves in, the more fuel this is going to require. I'm hoping for a 70 kilometer orbit. If I can manage to just get about 70 kilometers. Going to require pointing out of the prograde in order to make sure it doesn't go too much higher than that. There we go. Not too much of a problem. And now we're on the final stage, the final bit, which is going to be running out imminently. I didn't add anything on the main stack to connect to the payload. That was a mistake. Something I have done on previous versions that I forgot to do today. I will be fixing that, and we'll make sure we remember that in the future. But we are very nearly at our target Asparagus, and we're very nearly at our Asparagus. It's just a question of whether we have enough fuel or not. There's Kerbal, a featureless blue bit. And there's Space, with loads of stars that... Ooh, they should really improve that PNG. Let me come out of here, check our progress. 69 kilometers, coming up to our target Asparagus. Still thrusting prograde, which has now come down to join us at almost horizontal. Don't like the jig, and it's broken. Okay, this is not good. Yeah, I should really put struts connecting launch stage to payload. Oh man. Well, I don't know if this can get us up to orbit. I'm guessing not, so I'm going to abandon. If we detach that decoupler. And, oh dear. Thrust away. And it broke. And where did our orbit put us? Not into orbit. Oh dear. That's what we need to fix. I'm going to do that right now, and we'll be right back in just a few moments. And we're back as we ascend nearly up into orbit. We're just travelling at 1.2 kilometers per second. We're 50 kilometers up. Our Asparagus is 78 kilometers, which is way higher than it should be, because I wasn't paying attention. And now I just need to try and desperately thrust down towards the horizon. 82 kilometers. Well, this is a test, isn't it? Okay. What I'm considering doing now is actually just turning off the engine and waiting until we're out of the atmosphere, because we have the time and we don't want to waste any fuel trying to combat drag. What minimal amount of drag we get at this altitude. And now we're out of the atmosphere. We can burn again, with our prograde being slightly closer, which again helps with the efficiency. We can see on the minimap our previous attempt flying down towards its doom. 84 kilometers. Can we get into orbit with this? Added 6 struts connecting the probe body to the payload. Thinking about it now, it probably would have been a wiser decision to connect the actual fuel tank here to the payload, seeing as the fuel tank is connected to the rest of the ship via those other struts, but oh well. As we near our Asparagus, we should really be nearing it, not getting further away due to thrusting, so I'm going to point a bit below the horizon. Pointing too far down. Combating the previous work we've already done, so we're reducing our efficiency quite a lot. But oh well. Over 2 kilometers every second now as we rise, and our periapsis is nearly existent. We'll cut off the throttle here. We'll do some time acceleration to get, as our thing destroys itself on the surface of Kerbal, and we shall carry on burning now. And there is our periapsis. Rising, rising, rising. And we can turn that off because we are technically in orbit. 80-kilometer orbit. 86 to 81 kilometers with some fuel left over. That is very nice. So now what my intention was, having put a probe body on this launch stage, we'll spin ourselves round, and when we eventually point back the way we've came, I'll be able to detach and burn this thing retrograde. Here we go. Work up some spin, detach this, take ourselves away by thrusting slightly in this direction, swap to that, and burn retrograde. Oh, nearly missing that. Or nearly hitting it. There we go, that's enough to deorbit us. And we'll swap back to here. And look, our probe is now on a collision course back to Kerbal. So we've barely, or we haven't left any debris in orbit. Now we successfully have got 81 tons of payload into orbit with plenty of fuel for our mission, whatever we decide to do. I wonder how much Delta V we actually have in this engine. 4 tanks of fuel, no mean amount. This thing could definitely go land on the moon and come back or something ridiculous like that, but not in this episode. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it's been helpful for you. Hopefully it's been informative of what we're going to be using in the future. Despite failing that mission 3 times, I'm pretty confident that it's reliable enough. Maybe there are things that can be done to make it even more reliable, but that's not really necessary to be done right now. Again, thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, please do like the video, and I shall see you all next time.